Okay. Okay, so you are long advocated for a universal basic dividend funded by public returns on capital. If Web3 tools actually succeed in giving regular people ownership of their personal data assets, could this infrastructure provide the practical mechanism to automate and distribute the kind of dividend, or does it lack the state power required to enforce it?
My proposal that has gone on now, has been going on for about 10 years now, has been evolving for 10 years. So I was actually quite pleased to see that Bernie Sanders and others have latched onto it. Wasn't about granting digital ownership rights to people's data. It's something I support, but it's a separate issue. The point I was making was that with cloud capital, with this algorithmic capital, which extracts so many rents from society, most of the work that goes into creating this capital comes from the public, and the public doesn't get remunerated. So essentially, the proposal is that they become shareholders. So, Google, Meta, the rest have to be told, if you want to practice in our jurisdictions, you're going to have to hand over 40, 50% of your shares to a social equity fund. And the dividends accumulate from there, and then they are divvied up in the form of a universal basic dividend, as opposed to income. It doesn't come from taxation, unlike UBI, it comes from returns to capital. But since then, I've evolved further this proposal with a proposal for a monetary commons, which is even more powerful. Because if you have a digital wallet that is provided by the central bank to everyone who wants it, and monies are transferred from the private banking sector to essentially what it is, a central bank account, the negative money market multiplier works in such a way that it allows you, in order to stabilize the money supply, to grant a universal basic trust fund to everyone as well. So in conjunction with the returns to capital, to cloud capital, this monetary commons would provide society with a very substantial power to re-democratize our collective capacity to create money.
Thanks. Beyond the economical extraction of data, you've spoken about how modern algorithms manipulate our desires, shifting us from citizens to hyper-individualized consumers. So even if we change the underlying tech architecture to Web3, how do we restrain in some way the psychological damage that 2 decades of algorithm manipulations has done?
This is why I'm not an advocate of putting all our eggs in the Web3 basket. This is why I keep saying that unless we socialize cloud capital, then cloud capital will maintain its exorbitant power over society. Web3 has applications, but it's too expensive and too unwieldy in order to be able to counter the exorbitant power of big tech, of what I call the technofeudal sector.
Thanks. The last question, at least for me, back in 2015, during the Greek referendum, the European Union essentially turned off liquidity and forced banks to pressure the public debate, and ultimately the democratic mandate was bypassed. So looking back, if a secure, sovereign, blockchain-based infrastructure had already been mature and enforced for daily transaction and voting, could that referendum and, of course, even the history of Greece have turned out differently?
Well, the referendum turned out really very well. We had 62% in favor of resisting the bailout. And when we say bailout, it's not that the Greek people were being bailed out. Let's be very clear on this. It was another credit card that was being imposed upon us on behalf of the bankers. And the Greek people said no. But the essence of your question is one that I welcome, because the reason why I was demonized and I had to go, in inverted commas, from the perspective of the Troika, of Brussels, Berlin, of Frankfurt, was that I had already presided over the design of a blockchain-based payment system that would kick in at the stroke of a pen over the push of a button in order to create liquidity and create the capacity of the Greek state using a blockchain that had digital wallets attached to people's tax file numbers to effectively give us monetary autonomy, sovereignty. I was ready for it. I was about to hit a button. My prime minister defected to the Troika. The plug was pulled and I resigned.
Yeah. When I said when I said the referendum, I was referring at that moment if something was if we had the different infrastructure instead of the middleman.
Had I been allowed to activate that infrastructure, there would have been teething problems. Of course, there would be teething problems, but within a month or so, we would have a functioning blockchain-based payment system that would be totally autonomous and sovereign from the European Central Bank, and they didn't want that.
Okay, so the history of Greece and eventually even Europe probably would have been different. Okay, thank you very much.
So. Thank you.
For me, everything is from you.
I'm Laila from Euronews. So you spoke to us at Web Summit Qatar as well, and you brought up technofeudalism, of course, and stable coins. And today as well, do you get a sense that we are approaching this bubble and that it may be well too late to prevent the bubble from bursting, this crypto bubble, AI bubble?
The problem with bubbles is that you never know when they will burst. You know they will burst, but it is impossible to predict when because they are radically unpredictable. And anybody who tells you they know, they are either lying to themselves or to you. What matters now is that we prevent that bubble from inflating so much that its bursting is going to have a lot of collateral damage. That is our task as politicians, as members of the public, as movements, as influencers.
And if technofeudalism is humanity's next big crisis, how do you fight it?
Well, look, every political regime which is unsustainable because of this clash between what is in the interest of the many and what is in the interest of the few can only be ameliorated through democratic action. We may not like the idea of becoming involved politically, but there is no alternative to democratic political action. Speaking personally, if I may, just for one moment, I don't like going around politicking. But somebody has to do it, and we better all pitch in because it is our collective interest that is at stake.
You spoke a little bit earlier in there about Europe as a union. Now, as a union, it has also been pursuing technological independence for a long time. Is Europe, but it's, still heavily reliant on US platforms and technology. Is Europe capable of competing with the scale of American and Chinese technology companies?
Europe's tragedy is that it's a continent full of smart engineers, smart lawyers, smart scientists, smart people that behaves collectively in the most stupid of ways. For 20 years, we have been caught in a morass of negative productive investment. The result is that we've fallen behind on every front that matters for the future. Solar panels, electric vehicles, battery technologies, algorithmic capital, cloud capital, artificial intelligence. Why? Because we have been practicing socialism for the bankers and austerity for the many. Demand has been very low, no investment, and we don't have a European Union. Once Mahatma Gandhi was asked what he thought of British civilization, and his answer was, it would have been a very good idea. It's what I answer when people say to me, what do you think of the European Union? We don't have a European Union. We have a total disunion that presents itself as a union. We don't have an energy union. We don't have an investment union. We don't have a union that discusses sensibly what to do about the fact that we do not own any cloud capital at all. Only the other day there was a ranking of AI companies, and there was only one company there in the first 100. And it was Mistral. It was in position 98. It was the equivalent of Britain in the Eurovision Song Contest, right at the bottom.
Okay, one last question before I go. The world's first trillionaire, Elon Musk, is Elon Musk, and who's also SpaceX just listed in a blockbuster IPO. And I know you have some strong views about how he runs the business. How can humanity build an ethical future when there are innovators and visionaries, but there's also a huge gap in wealth disparity?
We have a system that is purely oligarchic. It disguises itself as a democracy because we have periodic elections, which nevertheless are contests between different factions of the same oligarchic party. The result is that you have the nativist, racist, ultra-right coming up as the only alternative to that. And then, of course, they get co-opted. And you have people like Elon Musk doubling between the nativist ultra-right and Wall Street. And the result is that all our remarkable technologies, even those that are helped and promoted by smart people like Elon Musk, turn into instruments that are being utilized against the vast majority of the people. So democratic politics is the only way of answering your question.
It feels like the emphasis of the blockchain generally, even now, is kind of autonomy and anonymity, but collectives require trust and collectivity, not just individual autonomy. Do you think that there's a limit to the imagination of Web3 as it's currently conceived, in that it doesn't really seem to have accounted for class struggle? It doesn't seem to have accounted for collective action.
Well, I couldn't put it better. This is the problem. If you think that a technology on its own can make amends for the class war which is being waged by the very, very, very few against the many, then I think you have misunderstood, not you, but whoever thinks that has misunderstood how technology works. What technology does is it exposes the backwardness of our social relations. It cannot by itself mend those social relations. And unless we combine a deep understanding of the capacities of technologies like blockchain with what it would take to redistribute power over our future, to redistribute, as I was saying in the amphitheater, the power to make others do things on your behalf, then it simply won't work.
Finally, do you think related to that, there's like a shortage of leftists who are interested in technology? It feels like the right has a kind of monopoly on technological kind of innovation, and that therefore the kind of libertarian origins of blockchain have kind of just gone further, have been kind of hijacked and taken further and further to the right. Like, we heard from this wonderful guy, Joshua Davila, who's the blockchain socialist, but like, it doesn't, from my own experiences in left-wing politics in the UK, there don't seem to be many people who are like interested in leveraging technology, whether that's in currencies like you were talking about, or in DAOs or whatever it is. It just seems like that's something that like libertarians and right-wingers do.
When blockchain emerged in late 2008, early 2009, the blockchain crowd was split almost evenly between libertarians and leftists, and left libertarians. I consider myself to be a left libertarian. Very soon after that, the whole debate became very toxic. And along with the rest of the decline of the left-wing movements, and I consider myself to be partially guilty for that because I was part of that movement, and we all messed up. In the same way that Occupy Wall Street fizzled out because we had the wrong agenda. The way that the Indignados in Spain fizzled out, the way that we fizzled out, our government in Greece, the left effectively went to ground and left that space, the blockchain space, the crypto space, totally in the hands of the libertarian loony right, which is detrimental to the crypto space as well. But more generally, allow me to make a confession, which I've made often, but I think I need to make it once more. Since 1929, humanity's woes are due to the failures of the left. We are responsible for the rise of the ultra-right. We are responsible for not having, taken the opportunity. In 2008, our analysis was proven right. Capitalism is not a stable system. The financial system is not self-regulating. Markets don't know best. So, 2008 was the greatest confirmation of that, that we could have had. And we, the left, ended up again with our sectarianism, again with our capacity to be co-opted by the system, some of us, not all of us, to become irrelevant and effectively to give room for the Nigel Farages, the Donald Trumps, the Orbáns and the Erdogans and so on of the world to take over.
I just have one question.
Okay.
It's just pretty simple. If you could today, what will be the first thing that you will fix from the internet today?
The first thing I would fix on the internet today, I'm going to say something that it sounds exceptionally anti-libertarian, but I am increasingly coming to this view. Anonymity is a huge problem. There is this debate in the United Kingdom at the moment, for instance, over banning social media for under 16-year-olds. I want to see that banned. I would very much like to see these algorithms taken away from kids. But how can you do this if we use anonymity to hide behind this kind of oligarchy? I didn't believe that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was completely against the idea that you need to register on the internet like you do in China in order to participate. But at some point, we have to understand that when there are bots that are being reproduced by other bots, and it is impossible anymore to know who is saying what to whom, and who is participating in which platform, I think we should take the plunge and go from anonymity to eponymity, at least when it comes to the social media world.
So interestingly, you support the ban on social media for under 16-year-olds in the UK?
Absolutely. But it won't happen because, look at what happened in Australia. 2/3 of the kids, especially the smart ones, bypass.
But without getting too into this, but under the legislation they're bringing in, they would also ban VPNs.
They will?
They would also ban VPNs to avoid that situation.
Well, but that, on the other hand, becomes very dictatorial. Yeah. And also, it won't work. Yeah. Because, our kids are very smart. They find ways of emulating older people, and they don't even need VPN for that. Yeah? So it's a question of efficiency. If you had eponymity, then you could give kids access to a lot more stuff without banning it. If you had eponymity. It's a fact that you have all these trolls out there who are hiding behind anonymity that force us to be more dictatorial towards our kids.
How should the left be talking about Epstein?
I think that the left has to concentrate in particular on the way that the Epstein circle of power is dehumanizing women in particular, how they are building up, often exploiting women and using women as agents. They're exploiting their capacity to reproduce patriarchy through a combination of financial power, social power, support of Israel. By the way, Epstein was central in the Zionist, power game, what really appalls me when I read these emails is the way they've been talking about women. I thought that back in the 90s that this kind of patriarchal demeanor was becoming extinct. No, it's not.
So did the system need somebody like Epstein to keep the system going with blackmail? Yeah.
What's the question again?
Did the system need somebody like Epstein for blackmail, etc.?
Not necessarily, but it helps.
Yeah.
Okay, that's done.
All right.